Welcome to Golf Smarter Mulligans number 61. I'm Fred Green. As I've discussed many times on this show, I am not a PGA teaching professional. My goal is to find effective teachers, golfers with great stories, and entrepreneurs with fascinating ideas to improve our golf lifestyle. Once I find them, whether I agree with them or their methods is not the point, because every golfer has different issues. So it's up to you, not me, to decide whether our wide range of guests resonate with you and your interests. Now, FYI, the website we discussed in this conversation that was published in 2008, 15minutegolf.com, is no longer live as of June 2020. But there's a very helpful app that I found called 15-Minute Golf Coach for your smartphone. I'm not sure if Lance is associated with it or not. But he has a lot of interesting things to say, so enjoy the show. Welcome and thanks for downloading another episode of the Golf Smarter podcast. So you're looking for a quick and easy fix to improve your game. Have you spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on lessons, training aids, clubs, balls, gadgets, practice? Obviously, you're not alone, and maybe that's why you search out content like the Golf Smarter podcast. Well, Reggie Robinson of New York, wrote in the other day and said, "Hearing the range of information from different individuals helps me because different people can articulate the same points in different ways, and every now and then I have an aha moment, which is similar to the pleasure of the oh yeah moment when I hit a well-struck chip that lands, skips, and releases the way I envisioned it." Today's guest is Lance McWilliams, creator of the 15-Minute Golf Training Method. According to his website, it says, 15-Minute Golf teaches you to swing naturally. This is a method to learn the golf swing in a new and different way. Can it be that simple? To some, including Lance, the answer is yes. To others, this guy may be missing the point. I'll let you be the judge. But if you find a single Easter egg in today's search, it's worth it, right? Welcome to Golf Smarter, Lance.
Hello, Fred. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I want to congratulate you. You've made the golf swing sound so simple, so easy, and you may have found the ultimate hook. 15-minute golf. I just, that is such a simple concept, but it isn't. Golf isn't that simple, is it?
Well, it is. It is.
Come on.
What the problem is in the past, what we've done is we've tried to learn golf the way we don't learn anything else.
What do you mean by that? I don't understand that.
Can you name one thing out there that we learn the way we learn golf?
Describe what you mean by how we learn golf.
We break golf down to wherever everything is either right or wrong. And, you walk and I walk. Okay, do you walk the same way I do?
I no.
Okay, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to force everybody into swinging the same way. And the problem with that is your body type is different than my body type.
Right.
And an analogy I like to use, and this will simplify everything for you, is do you have to know how to build the clock to tell the time?
No.
Okay. In the traditional method of teaching, they're teaching you how to build the clock to be able to swing a club. I'm teaching you how to swing the club.
Okay. But if we don't do things the same way, how is it that you can teach me how to do something this sophisticated in 15 minutes?
Because I teach you what to do, not how to do it.
Keep going.
Well, what I do is if you want somebody to do a job for you and you want to get more out of them than you've ever anticipated and more out of them than they've ever anticipated.
Let them do it their way.
Exactly. But you tell them what you want done. So you're ultimately in control of it by telling them what you want done. So what I do, if you do the right thing, you can do it your way. And it's so uncomplicated, it's not even funny. How long have you been able to tell the time?
Most of my life.
Okay. Now, how's the clock made?
I have no idea.
But now, one thing I do when I give a lesson is I ask guys, the very first thing I do is ask them to tell me everything they can about the golf swing. And usually that's about a 5 to 10 minute conversation about every little intricacy you could possibly think of.
It's extremely nuanced.
Exactly. It's like a choreographed dance. Well, they tell me everything they know about it. And then when they get done, I ask them a simple question. Has it worked for you yet? And every single time the answer is like, well, no, or I wouldn't be here. Then I ask them a question. It's kind of funny. I say, well, tell me everything you know about a clock. And they can't tell me anything, or how it's made, how it works. Every once in a while I get the one guy that really knows how it's made, and he starts telling me all this stuff. And I got to use something else on him. Yeah,
but I got to imagine that guy knows so many details about the golf swing. If he knows the details about a clock, he's probably one of those technical people that can pick things apart like that, right?
Exactly. But the majority of us, and the majority of the guys I give lessons to, have no clue. But then they had the same answer you did about how long they could tell the time. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting. We've been able to tell time since we're kids, and we trust that it's right.
And here's an interesting aside. Neither of my children, who are now grown, but neither of them wanted me to teach them how to read the face of a clock, because they were like, what do I need to know that for? Everything's digital.
Very, very, very good point.
But I said to them recently, look over towards 2 o'clock, and they're like, where's that?
Oh, very good. I've never thought about adding that to the repertoire because even now, I have no idea how a digital clock is made. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have no idea. I know how the old ones kind of worked almost, but not enough to take one apart and put it back together.
Yeah, and the other thing about telling time digitally is no one says it's 1:45 anymore. They say it's 2:46. Exactly. No, tell me it's 1/4. It's easier. I'm sorry to get sidetracked, but I'm good at that. Go ahead.
No, but it's funny because that's exactly what we do in the golf swing is we get sidetracked. We start getting into the details. Mm-hmm. And there's so much stuff that the golfer knows that the golfer does not need to know that it's not even funny. And there's a thing I came up with that's called the disconnected golfer. And what the disconnected golfer is a golfer that has this avalanche of information coming down on him, and he can't decipher it, because that's not the way we learn. An interesting thing is, when we learn to walk, we don't learn to walk. We actually learn not to fall down. Think about that for a minute. Well,
that's actually, we'll go back to being a parent and working with children, is when I teach little kids how to ride a bike, the first thing I teach them how to do is how to fall off the bike. And that eliminates their fear of falling.
Exactly.
And they're much more confident when they get on the bike.
Exactly. And also, when they do fall off, do you run over there and tell them that they've done it wrong and show them exactly what they did wrong, how their balance was off and all that stuff?
No, of course not.
But that's the way we teach the golf swing. Mm-hmm. An interesting thing about the golf swing, what I did was I used to do market research and market analysis, and I started applying that to the golf swing.
Yeah, I was going to get to a little bit later your credentials and how you got to here, but go ahead with this story.
Okay. Well, what I did was I started applying that to finding out why the average golfer can't get any better. And I noticed it in myself. I noticed it in my friends. I noticed it, just across the board. You get to a certain point and you just can't get any better. And what I started doing is doing the research, and I just addressed it like I would any issue in the market. I would just do it and just pull in any information, prevalent or not, and then just kind of decipher that information. And it didn't take very long until I figured out something really, really interesting. And what that was is companies have spent millions upon millions of dollars improving every aspect of the golfing experience for the golfer. I mean, millions of dollars. Okay? We've got better balls, we've got better courses, and we've got better clubs than at any time in the history of this game. Okay? You look at the clubs now versus the clubs 20 years ago, unbelievable difference. You look at the balls now versus 20 years ago, unbelievable difference. Interesting thing, I was talking to Kathy Whitworth, and she said the biggest advancement in golf has been actually in the golf courses. She said back when she used to play, you used to have rough spots in the middle of the fairway. And said now when you're in the middle of the fairway, you're basically setting up on a small tee.
Yeah, well, with the water crisis going on, in a lot of places around the country are getting a lot of hard spots too.
Exactly. But the funny thing about that, though, was with all that money spent and all that effort spent, there has been very little improvement, and actually no improvement, in the average American handicap in the past 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of found that interesting. I was like, wow, all of this stuff done, and then I started talking to people and asking why. And I got the story about, well, you got people coming in, people going out. Well, but that shouldn't matter, because you've had a paradigm shift in the golfing experience. You know, so it's like, it'd be like saying, okay, you take a 2-cylinder car, which I don't know if they ever made one or not, but you take a 2-cylinder car and all of a sudden turn that into an 8-cylinder and say, well, it's still going in a car, so we're not going to see any difference. Well, that's kind of what we've done with all this changes in equipment and everything. We've taken it from a 2-cylinder to an 8-cylinder car, but the thing is we haven't seen any change in the handicap, the scoring. So I started going along that way. And an interesting thing that I found out was that we've changed the way we teach, okay, but we have not changed the information we're teaching. And almost everything we teach is based off of Hogan's 5 fundamentals. Almost everything we teach is based off of that. And then what I started doing is I started researching Hogan. And Hogan's miss was a snap hook. So when Hogan was sitting on the tee box, what he was trying to do is not snap hook it. So what he was doing is trying to keep the club face open. Us as average golfers, we fight to close the club face down. So what happens is we're fighting to keep the club face. We're fighting to shut it down, but we're using what Hogan taught us, and we're leaving it open. So it's exacerbating the problem.
How many teachers did you work with before you were able to develop this method?
Well, what I actually started doing is, it's funny you asked that, I actually started working on a method to teach the teachers how to teach the golfer, in a manner that the golfer could learn.
And how was that received?
A lot of guys, it's funny, a lot of guys kept telling me there was not a disconnect between almost every guy. There's not a disconnect between me and my students, me and my pupils. There's not a disconnect. Then when I would ask them a very simple question, it was funny the answer that I got. I said, okay, so what you're telling me is that every student you teach understands everything that you're trying to tell them.
Absolutely not.
That's hey, wow. Are you a teaching pro?
Absolutely not.
Well, it's funny. That's the answer that I got. So what I started doing is working on a system to be able to teach the pros to teach the golfers to get better. And what that system was a system that I called, for lack of a better term, scales. And what I did is I borrowed it from the way people learn piano. They learn to play the piano by playing scales.
Sure.
So as they play these scales, they get better, and as they get better, the scales get tougher. Well, what I started doing is I had a scale for the swing path, for the release point, and for the club head. So a guy would have 3 scales. Well, Joe Blow off the street, his scale might start off being 2 foot wide on a swing path. But Mr. Pro, his might be 2 inches wide. And it went from a -10 to a +10 on the scale. So what the guy would do is, after he swung, he'd give me 3 numbers. It'd be, let's say, an 8, 7, -2. Those were reflective of the swing path, the release point, and the club face at impact. And by doing that, he could actually start seeing what was causing his problems during the swing. And he could also start feeling it. Just a little different, thought process on it, and then it would work. It was a longer process though than 15 minutes. Okay, and it's kind of funny, which I wish I could tell you that my 15-minute technique or system came from all of this research and all of this knowledge that I gathered and all this work that I did. But I actually woke up one night about 2 a.m. and laid in bed for about 20 minutes thinking about it. I had it, and I was like, why will this not work? And I kept thinking why it wouldn't work, and I could not come up with an answer of why it wouldn't work. And then I went in I went into the closet and started swinging. And
in the middle of the night?
In the middle of the night.
That must have made people happy. Yeah.
Well, my wife kind of calls me a mad scientist because if I get an idea in the middle of the night, I'll get up and go.
You are gone.
Because the thing is, what I found out is if I don't get up and do the idea right then, I will wake up in the morning and I will not have it. So I just went in the closet and just started swinging, and to my amazement, it worked. And then what I've done since I got it, it took me about a year and a half to figure out how to take what I learned that night and get it to where I could explain it to other people. Because, you know, the key is if I could have the greatest amount of information about something in the world, but if I can't communicate it to you, then it's worthless to you.
How long have you been playing golf?
I've been playing golf I'm 42, so 24, 25 years. Mm-hmm. And I've been frustrated almost my entire golfing life.
And before you started your method, what kind of golfer were you?
Before I was very erratic and very inconsistent. And I'd shoot right at lower 90s.
Okay.
And now I'm shooting lower 80s, and my consistency is, I don't want to say it's unbelievable, but my consistency is very, very good.
Also, since before you started this, how often were you playing?
That's kind of the funny thing, is before I started this, I was probably, on average, probably 2 times a week. And and one thing I found out is by doing this, I probably get to play maybe 2 to 3 times a month now. So I'm actually playing less and playing better. I know, there goes that logic thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Are there golfers who have who this doesn't work for? Have you worked with people who it doesn't connect?
I have had one guy that it completely did not connect with him. And it's kind of interesting that you asked that, because his deal was, what he does for a living is he does crisis PR.
What does that mean?
A company makes a mistake, and what he does is they hire him to come in and do the PR to alleviate the negativity created by that mistake. So what he's doing is, like, if let's say a company Company A spills oil out there in the bay, they hire him to come in to put a good positive spin on and to try to create not as negative an image from their mistake.
Wow.
And the problem that he had is every time I told him to do something in the process, he couldn't do it. He had to question why. Why do you want? And the funniest thing, afterwards we went and had a glass of iced tea and kind of discussed the lesson. And I asked him, I said, one of the things that is interesting is I mentioned the analogy to him about the clock. And he said, well, for the next 5 minutes, he was wondering what a clock had to do with a golf swing. I was like, okay, that explains a lot.
So what traditional aspect of instruction, from your perspective, is really the most damaging to golfers and makes it so that you're very excited they've come to your doorstep?
That what happens is, and I'm going to say this as nice as I can, traditional golf teaches swing path, swing plane, everything you could possibly think of. And the thing that they don't teach is that one thing causes about 90% of your swing errors. And what that thing is release point. If you release the club at the wrong time, then you've either got to make up for it with the arms or something. Great example is, everybody always says you're raising your head. How many times have you heard that? Oh, well, you raised your head.
I lifted my head. Yeah.
Actually, you didn't.
Actually, one of the great quotes that was submitted by one of our listeners told him that his dad used to tell him, if you lift your head, all you're going to see is a bad golf shot.
Well, and it's funny, and he didn't actually lift his head. What he did was he released the club at the wrong time, and he adjusted his body to allow the club to come through. okay? If he did not adjust his body and he released it at the wrong time, he'd hit about 6 inches behind the ball. So he raised his body up, which appeared to make his head raise.
Mm-hmm.
But he's actually raising his body up.
Mm-hmm.
If you release the club late, you get that beautiful thing we call a chicken wing. So it's all in the release point. And that's the key to it, is the release point. Because if you release it at the right time, then the club is gone before you have a chance to make an adjustment to it. Hmm. Have you ever seen anybody, this is a great example I like to use, have you ever seen anybody use a whip before?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay, when they use that whip, how many times have you seen them keep their arms straight, their wrist straight, and just swing their arm?
No, it's not the way it works.
No. What they do is they crack the wrist to crack the whip. Exactly. Mm-hmm. That's the golf swing. That's the entire golf swing right there. But it's understanding that's the key. You know, and this is the thing is, if I sit there and I get you to keep your arm straight, which is a lot of the ways that we've learned, and keep the club in front of you, your chances of consistency, if that club was a whip instead, how much power would you have, and how much consistency would you have? Yeah,
little to none. I mean, in watching your DVD, I went over the part about power generation and the throwing the punch, right?
Exactly. That's a great example. I mean, and if you put your arm out in front of you and you just twist your shoulders, how much power do you have?
None.
Okay, if you just swing your arms, how much power do you have?
Little.
Okay, but if you twist your shoulders and then throw your arm, you've got a ton.
Right. And what about your feet? Where do they come in your legs? Do you not get power generated from your legs?
Well, and that's to me, that's almost a misconcept in a way. Have you ever seen that mechanical machine that just tattoos the ball?
Sure. When they test, they try to make the exact same swing every time.
Exactly. How many times have you seen the feet on that thing move?
It's a solid base, Lance.
Okay.
But it's all mechanical. I mean, it's a whipping motion, isn't it?
It is. It is a whipping motion, and the base is very steady. And what happens is if that base was like what we've been taught, think about how hard it is. Basically, we've got every part of our body moving, and then we got to get it all lined back up at the exact right time, or the result's a bad shot.
On your DVD, while I was watching it, I got to tell you that there was something that rang true to me. At first, when you said you got to keep your legs, like a triangle, and it's like, well, duh. You know, I mean, if you're putting your feet out at shoulder width and they meet in the center of your body, of course that's a triangle. But then I started thinking about how you're mentioning of like the bending of the knee during the swing. And I have a friend who every swing on his backswing, his front leg, the knee buckles in, and his foot, the side of his foot comes off the ground practically, and his swing produces nothing. And yet, when there's just a lot of movement on his lower half of his body. And when we remind him to keep still, he does a much better job. And you talk about that as keeping the lower half of your body still. Right.
And what it actually is, it's keeping it quiet. And what I'm trying to do with this is eliminate all of the movement that the golfer doesn't have to have. By eliminating that, then all of a sudden it's more of a free-flowing motion with the arms, and it's like on you've watched the DVD.
Yes, I have.
Okay, the grip pressure everybody goes into. You know, anything you ever talk about, everybody always talks about grip pressure.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I could sit here and give you 50,000 analogies on grip pressure, or I can have you do the flip drill, and your grip pressure is perfect.
Well, yeah, one of the things that seemed to jump out at me that was missing on your DV was position, grip, alignment, the PGA part of it.
And again, what that is if you basically follow through, what I'm worried about is that 6 inches before the ball and the 6 inches after the ball.
Okay.
That's all I'm worried about. You've watched the PGA Tour, you've watched the LPGA Tour.
Of course.
How many of those people out there have unconventional swings?
There are some.
Yeah, but they knock the crap out of it.
Put it mildly.
Okay. Well, if you watch them, they all do the exact same thing at impact. If you take a still shot of every one of those guys, I don't care if it's John Daly, if it's Corey Pavin, if it's Tiger Woods, I don't care who it is.
Jim Furyk.
Great example. Laura Davey, big muscular lady, but they're all the same at impact. They're all the same, no matter what they do. And that's what I'm teaching, is the impact position. But I'm not teaching the position, because if I teach the position, what's going to happen is guys are going to stop and they're going to punch at the ball. Just like talking in there about the punch, they're going to punch at the target instead of punching through. Mm-hmm. You never see a heavyweight boxer get in a ring and just punch at a guy. He is trying to knock that guy out. Well, that guy you're trying to knock out is the ball. And what you want to do is you want that club to punch through that guy.
And the ball's not moving.
Exactly. And it's kind of funny, though, because once you start getting the process down, it's almost one of those duh moments in your life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's almost like, oh, wow, I've been doing all of this. And it's not that I'm saying that the teaching pros don't know what they're teaching. They know exactly what they're teaching. They've just been teaching the wrong thing. And
you probably are not making a lot of friends with statements like that.
And it's funny you say that. I've actually talked to some teaching pros, and one of the guys, after we got through talking, he started off kind of being, for lack of a better term, a jerk. And by the time we got through talking, he wanted to know if there's anything he could do to help me through this process.
Wow.
Another guy, when I mentioned about the disconnected golfer, he told me that I had no idea what I was talking about and all this stuff, and I asked him that simple question about, do they understand? Of course they don't. And he was like, well, yeah, but he goes, you can't teach somebody. I'm trying to think of his exact quote. You can't teach somebody to get in that position because they'll shank a ball. Well, there's so many people who don't shank it, then, I'll let them try it. I'm not going to make that decision for them.
So what specifically do you do to break ingrained swing habits from golfers?
What's kind of funny is just going through that thing we talked about earlier. I asked them about the clock. I asked them to give me all that information.
You just try to create a paradigm shift in their own head.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I'm working on the mental side. And also one of the things that I also do is I help them learn how to use a swing thought. We've all heard the term swing thought. Oh,
on this show? Frequently.
Okay. Everybody talks about it, but nobody tells how to use it.
Well, they tell you to stop having them.
Well,
there's too many.
Don't have mechanical ones, yes.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. But what they don't do is they don't teach you how a swing thought works. And what the swing thought actually is, and this is probably a little bit different. Some of the people in the past you've had are probably a lot more better at explaining it than I am. But what a swing thought is, it's tricking the mind. Is really what it is. It's getting the mind to think of something else. A great example is if you and I were out there standing looking at the Golden Gate Bridge, and I said, hey, look over there, there's Alcatraz. And you look over there, and you go, wow, look, man, that's beautiful. Well, what I didn't want you to do is be looking at the bridge at that time. So what I did was I got you to look at something else instead of looking at the bridge. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, don't think about the pink elephant.
That's the analogy I use all the time.
Yeah.
I always tell everybody, do not think about that pink polka dotted elephant sitting in the corner.
Yeah, well, how can you not think about the pink polka dotted elephant?
Right. So if you give somebody something to think about, and they learn how to use that, then all of a sudden what they can do is self-medicate themselves, for lack of a better term, on the course. Mm-hmm. A great example I like to use is when you come up to a par 3. How many times have you been yourself or somebody you've been playing with put the ball in the water and you go, well, God.
I do that every time.
Okay. And what were you thinking about?
Don't hit the ball in the water. Hit the ball in the water. Hit the ball in the water.
Yeah,
hit the ball in the water.
Right. And the reason behind that, which a lot of people don't understand, is the mind cannot hear a negative.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you're talking to a child, you tell the child what you want them to do, not what you don't want them to do.
Correct.
If a kid's in a bad mood, then you can either tell them they need to smile or you tell them not to smile, and they'll start smiling every time.
All right, we're running out. I'm really curious. Watching the DVD, it was so simple. Does it really come down to 3 basic drills? It
is. And that's basically what I thought of that night while I was lying in bed. I was like, wow. Instead of going through all the scales, I could teach people these 3 things, and it'll change.
And I know that you're trying to sell DVDs, but give me one drill. Give me one idea. Share with us what you're talking about.
I'll give you one thing to think about. Okay, the speed of the arms does not control how far the ball goes. It has very little determination of how far the ball goes. Okay, what everybody tries to do is if they want more power, they try to speed the arms up. You have to speed the release up to get more power, not the arms.
Very interesting.
And just carry that around with you every time you start playing bad, and you want to just swing as hard as you can to try to make extra power. It's not the arms that are going to give it to you. It's the release of the club.
Now, Lance, you're not a PGA certified instructor.
I am not.
Sounds like you have no intentions of becoming a PGA certified instructor.
I do not. What my goal is, Fred, is to help guys hit a golf ball better.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
Will it change? Now, one of the things that we started with is you talk about how scores have not changed over years and years. Will it change scores?
Well, I've had a guy who couldn't break 100 go out and shoot 88 the first time after the video. I've got a guy who couldn't break 90 go out and shoot 81 with 2 triples.
Whoa.
I've got I can keep on. I had a guy who got it an hour before he went out and played, or an hour before he left to go play, watched part of the video, go out. He's an 18 handicap, shot 9 over on the front, and he said, I was just going to stick with it and try it. Shot 3 over on the back. It's his best 9 ever. And he actually sent me an email wanting to know if I wanted any investors.
Oh, good luck to you.
And I've had a guy that couldn't hit fairways. He hit 13 out of 14 fairways, and he said the one that he missed was less than a club length off, and he could actually count it if he wanted to, but he said he's only counting now when they're actually truly in the fairway.
Well, it's called 15-minute golf. It sounds simple. It sounds like it works, and it sounds like it has worked for a number of people. Congratulations, Lance. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Fred. I appreciate it.